Today it is time for a professional match of StarCraft 2, and what I've got for you is a game on Automaton. Spawning here on the right hand side of the map, I'm playing with the red Terran SCVs. He's from South Korea and he goes by the name of Fantasy. His opponent on the left hand side playing with the blue Zerg drones. We are looking inside of the main base of Solar. Now, Solar, of course, very well known in StarCraft 2. This man has won a variety of tournaments. I think his biggest tournament victory ever was an SSL a couple of years ago, but he loves to participate in online tournaments. There seems to be a list of pro gamers, right, that absolutely love playing online tournaments, and then there's a whole lot of them that just simply don't play any of them whatsoever. I mean, for example, Serral does not participate really in any online tournaments unless it's a qualifier for a bigger event. Solar, though, he seems to play in pretty much all of them, at the very least, as long as he's awake, and he wins a couple of them every single week as well. So if you go to his Wikipedia page and you scroll down to his tournament winnings, it's just like pages of him winning online events. And I guess it's a couple $100 here and there, right? If you're playing and you're practicing, you may as well participate in some of the events, or at the very least, that's my opinion. I like the fact that Solar plays so many of those online events because he ends up winning a lot of them against really good players as well. Now, Fantasy, he's a name who I'm personally very familiar with. I covered him a couple times before on this YouTube channel. The thing is, Fantasy's glory days were certainly back in StarCraft 1. He has been around for many years, and before he started up his mandatory military service over in South Korea, he was actually switched to StarCraft 2. However, after he came back, even though a lot of pro gamers nowadays, after they wrap up their military service, they actually start playing StarCraft 1 again, he decided to jump back into StarCraft 2. For those of you unfamiliar, StarCraft 1, even in 2019, yes, it is still more popular in South Korea than StarCraft 2 ever has been. And it's pretty crazy. There's massive prize pools, there's very big tournaments as well. But Fantasy, even though he has been very successful in StarCraft 1, he decided to try his luck in StarCraft 2, and he certainly has been improving very rapidly. Now, his biggest tournament victory was back in 2010 when he won an OSL in the Grand Finals against Stork. Now, I have no idea how many of my viewers here on this YouTube channel actually watch StarCraft 1. Let me know down below in the comment section if you do, okay? I would like to know. But anyways, in case you're unfamiliar, right? You may be familiar with some of the names that we have in StarCraft 1. But regardless, OSLs were won by, for example, Fantasy, but then also by players like Nada, July, Jaedong, Flash, Boxer, I Love Oof, Jangbi, Nara, Savior, Stork, Effort. There's a whole lot of great players and a whole lot of very well-known names, especially someone like Flash and Jaedong, right? A whole lot of great names that ended up winning these events, and I definitely don't think you have to underestimate Fantasy. Just because he may not be as well-known as, like, for example, a Solar in StarCraft 2, he certainly has got the micro of someone who played a lot of StarCraft 1. StarCraft 1 is one of those games that is extremely mechanically demanding. I mean, for example, right? Here's one difference between StarCraft 1 and StarCraft 2 that you may take for granted if you play StarCraft 2 a lot. StarCraft 2 units actually know how to walk. It may sound ridiculous, but try and micro, like, a Dragoon in StarCraft 1 or like a Goliath. They don't walk very well, man. They just simply walk in their own direction and they do whatever they like. It's pretty ridiculous. They have a very weird walking animation, and also like rally points and whatnot. Rally points just don't really properly exist towards, for example, like a mineral line. I mean, you basically have to make an SCV, rally it like right over there, and then manually go back to every base and put them to mineral mining. It's a super painful game where one mistake can easily make you lose the game. And I guess Fantasy figured, you know what? I'm gonna try and play a little bit of a less mechanically demanding game, and he decided to play StarCraft 2. I mean, this game is still extremely brutal. Anyways, I've been blabbering onwards about a lot of things, but you know what? This game, I have been paying attention to the build orders right here from both players. This game is pretty much as standard as it goes right now. We see that lair coming up here for Solar around the 4-minute mark. Goes for the Roach Warren right here as well. He has been happily macroing up on 3 bases. I guess he just sacrificed an Overlord right here, and he got the Scout off right there. I'm assuming at the very least, yes, of that starport. He knows about the fact that a Tech Lab was out, so he prepared right here with Spore Crawlers that should be out in time to deal with this kind of aggression. Here's that first Banshee, making its way downtown, flying fast, activating Cloak, and I guess it's not homebound, but at the very least it's gonna try its very best to kill a couple of drones. There you go. 1 or 2 drones, not bad at all. Getting a couple of worker kills is very important for Terran. Basically, the last thing that you want as a Terran player is being forced to deal with a Zerg player that's got maximum economy. That's kind of what your goal is in the early game if you are a Terran player. You really wanna try and slow down the Zerg in any way possible. Ideally with worker counts, but at the very least also with some of the creep spread, and at the very least with some of that unit production, right? You don't really want to give the Zerg all of the wiggle room that they require. And once again, dude, this is awesome. We see Hyperflight Rotors coming up. I recently did a game between Solar and Gumiho, where Gumiho also ended up going for the Hyperflight Rotors upgrade. It's a speed increase, once again, right? It's a speed increase for the Banshee. It's not very common, but I like it a lot. I think it's an extremely good upgrade. Fantasy, he seems to be transitioning towards Mech here. Yep. We see additional factory tech labs right now coming on. I think he's gonna go ahead and play that Cyclone-based army, judging by the fact that he's got a lot of Hellions already as well. Regardless, he is roaming the map, trying to get a bit of an angle. He killed a couple drones so far, but that's not really what you're looking for, honestly. Considering the amount of Hellions that were made here, I kind of like this position for our Zerg player quite a bit. He's already sitting at 69 drones. Nice. And he has been happily macroing up. He's been happily improving his economy. And he's right now also going up towards a Spire. So it's going to be Roaches and Mutalisk right here in the early game of this match. Solar, though, does scout out exactly what's going on. He sees indeed that there's a green light right there in that tech lab on the right. And, or on the left rather, and he should be able to figure out, it's on the top, I guess, right? Top left. Anyways, he will figure out right now that it's likely gonna be that mech-based army. Nowadays, even though this is StarCraft 2, right? And even though he has played a lot of StarCraft 1, you don't have to research things like siege mode. Anyone remember that? You had to research siege mode? Actually, that was a thing in StarCraft 2 during the early days as well. You had to research siege mode before you could siege up with a tank. Even though it was called a siege tank, you still had to go ahead and use the upgrade. Nice little bit of roasting right there, though, by Fantasy, getting rid of a lot of Zerglings for pretty much free. The thing about this mech-based army, especially when it's Cyclone Hellion-based, and then also apparently a hit squad of Banshees, it kind of forces Zerg to be on the defensive, right? And I love this. Look at that. They deal so much damage. Why do not more players do this? I swear, it's so good. I guess you have to be extremely active with the unit as well, but that is just a couple of Banshees. They have so many kills already. That's just 8 kills. You blink twice and all of a sudden 8 drones are gone. And they're not done yet. They can tank a couple hits as well. Oh my god, he actually just decided to uproot the Spore Crawler. Figured probably that those Banshees were gonna leave, but that's 12 drones. So very quickly for just a couple of those Banshees. How many have gone down? Dude, it's been a flawless game so far by Fantasy. He hasn't lost anything. Imagine we see like a half-hour long game where one player loses nothing. I guess that's pretty much impossible, but that'd be pretty insane. Anyways, Mech Field Accelerator finishing up, Infernal Pre-Igniter finishing up here as well. We see Fantasy ready to roll the map here with Cyclones, Hellions, and then apparently a hit squad of Banshees as well, as he has added on another one as well. In the meantime though, Solar, he has been transitioning towards a very passive unit composition, right? Looks like he wants to just simply defend while teching up towards an extremely quick Hive. We're 8.5 minutes into the game, 8 minutes and 40 seconds, and we already see that Hive just about to finish. The thing about Cyclones is that they are very, very good, but they're also very, very fast, right? And if they can lock onto a target and then back off really quickly, they're pretty much faster than any other unit on the ground. I mean, not faster than Zerglings, I suppose, but good luck trying to get a surround right here on Cyclones when there's this many Hellions nearby. They can lock onto a target. Oh my god, is he gonna get the kill here? I guess he might. But they can lock onto a target and, well, yeah. They can lock onto a target and then back off. The reason why we see this really quick Hive is because of those Vipers. Vipers have a spell called Abduct. It allows them to abduct those Cyclones while they are trying to retreat. And since Cyclones are really fast, they usually can be picked up quite quickly if you manage to abduct them into your army. They're fast, but also very vulnerable. They don't have a lot of hit points here in the grand scheme of things. And on top of that, they're actually very expensive units. I think a lot of people underestimate the cost of a Cyclone. They're by no means cheap. Anyways, here we go. Cyclones are very good as well when it comes to killing structures. He could lock onto this base, which I wouldn't mind seeing whatsoever, but that's still a lot of Zerg. I don't think you really want to overcommit here. A couple of the Banshees, though, still up in the air, man. I love the Banshee hit squad, guys. I know I've said it time and time again. Why do not That's so good. He's gotten so much value. Anyways, the flawless game here for Fantasy so far is no more, but we certainly do still see a lot of value coming out of those Terran units. And the thing that that really allows this mech army to flourish is the speed of the expansions, right? So I haven't really highlighted it just yet, but right when you start building up that Terran ball of Cyclones, you can sacrifice some of your Hellions. That's fine. Ooh, that's the one we're looking for, by the way. Those abducts, yes! Great work there by Solar. What you usually run out of is gas. You want to try and bring your gas down, and then with leftover minerals, you either build Hellions or a bunch of additional command centers. You can very quickly expand all over the map, and Fantasy is already up to 4 bases that are happily mining. And apparently, ooh, I love this. Solar, rather than following it up with like more Hydras and then more Vipers, I have seen him go up to like 12 Vipers in this matchup. He is now going up towards a Nydus network. Now that's something I really, really like. Nydus networks, of course, are very good when the Terran units are out on the map. The thing is, though, you don't really have a lot of scouting information. By the way, we already see a fusion core here as well. Liberators now are the name of the game, and we also see the advanced ballistics upgrade. A lot of those air unit upgrades, man. Not a lot of people play them, honestly. I think they're really good. Going for the cloaking field and then the really quick speed upgrade there for the Banshees, and now also going for the ranged upgrade for these Liberators. It allows them to siege up from a bit of a distance. This is one of those things that we have seen a lot more, but it seems like it's speeding up, right? I don't think a lot of people were getting like the Liberator ranged upgrade by 11 minutes 2 years ago, for example. I feel like that was one of those super late game upgrades. But nowadays, Terran players have really figured out how to transition to that very smoothly. And now, all of a sudden, look at this army. This is a scary army. At the same time, though, while the majority of the Terran army is over here, we see a Nydus worm going up inside of the main base of the Terran player. Terran player, though, very, very busy, but I guess a couple of these Banshees do get sent back. They're trying to go after this. At the same time, big engagement right over here at the 4th base of the Zerg player. He needs to try and get rid of all of these units to the best of his abilities. Good micro so far. Looks like the Nydus worm inside of the main base was picked off. The one in the natural right now is going up as well. I guess there's not that many units right now committed inside of the network anyways. Still, you gotta be careful. Moving those Hydras off creep is not ideal. At the same time, though, while that's going on, we do see a couple of units popping out of the Nydus worm on the other side of the map. This should likely force, at the very least, a bit of a pause right there to that army of Fantasy on the other side of the map, and he actually decides to retreat back home. The command center right now is lifted up, and finally, we see some counter damage. What a wonderful move here. That's such a difficult decision to make. I think, though, you kind of want to get out. I think you want to go home. Oh, killing the armory is actually really nice as well. That's a big deal, guys. Killing an armory and denying an upgrade like that is a big, big deal. I figured you probably wanna go home with those Zerg units instead, though, because that was pretty expensive. But I guess now that the majority of those Terran units decided to make their way across the map once again to home as well, it now allows the Zerg to be a bit more on the offensive. Look at the supply count right now. Solar pretty much maxed out. He's making the transition right now towards Corruptors as well to get rid of these Liberators a little bit easier. Still out of Vipers abducting one of them at a time. Cyclones trying to deal as much damage as they can, but still, this Zerg army, it's scary. It's scary, but it doesn't really want to advance into the range of those Liberator circles and then also into the range of the Planetary Fortress. So eventually, Solar will be forced to back off. And of course, like our mechanics overlord right here is showing, while that's all going on, he's happily making about a gazillion command centers, grabbing himself another command center on the left-hand side as well. And I mean, that's one of the things you notice very quickly about a lot of these top-tier Terran players, especially from StarCraft 1. They're very good at their minimap awareness. Yeah, there you go. See, like, how long did that take? Not a long time at all. They're very good at minimap awareness, but they're also really good just mechanically. You won't really see Fantasy queuing up a lot of units and not really continuously expanding. His production, I guess, is just really solid. Anyways, so far, actually, as far as the speed of both of these players go, actually, in, like, pro gaming terms, I know 360 and 300 APM is a lot, but actually in pro gaming terms, it's not nearly as much as you might anticipate. A lot of pro gamers, especially like some of the younger guys nowadays, they play at like 4.5, sometimes even peaking at like 550 actions per minute on average. That's insane, obviously, right? That's not really what you can expect, but it seems like especially Zerg and Terran players are very, very fast. Whew, okay, so even though I've been yelling into this microphone for a little while, right? It seems like we have arrived at a bit of a lull in this game. Both players, well, I say that, both players have decided to take a bit of a defensive posture, but they're once again ready to go. They're ready to mingle. We have maxed out armies on both sides. Fantasy, though, he's got a lot of workers. Ooh, nice abducts once again. Free abduct. It's so much value, man. That's the thing about these Vipers. They get so much value off. Anyways, we see a nice set of upgrades right now coming up here as well for Solar. Now, even going for those melee unit upgrades. Interesting that he decided to go for melee before +3 carapace. Anyways, there's a lot of Corruptors available here. They are looking to obviously go after these Liberators, ideally, but you can't really just fly them in there because Cyclones are still surprisingly good when it comes to dealing with those Corruptors. They will lock on, they deal a lot of damage to armored, and they can definitely go ahead and pick these units up with ease. Now, this is an awkward moment. Terran is moving on the right-hand side of the map, whereas Zerg is currently headed towards the top left-hand side as well. The question is, where do you want to commit? It looks like most of the air units decide to go back home, whereas the majority of the ground army here for Fantasy is engaging in the center of the map where that gold hatchery has been happily mining resources. At the same time, Solar looked at it twice and he figured, okay, you know what? I'm going to send part of my army back home. I'm going to send part of my army towards the planetary. The planetary does fall. Still, you have to be careful. Picking up, oh my god, picking up those Vipers is a big deal. Those Vipers are extremely valuable here for Zerg. And while the command center does fall, there's going to be a lot of them ready to take the place as well. Apparently a couple of SCVs right there being picked off on their way out as well. A Spinecrawler poking over that little ledge here. But there's no way that this hatchery in the center will stay alive. And I don't really know if I like this position too much for Zerg. I do like this engagement potential, though. A lot of these Hydras looking to engage from the back. That's why these Liberators are. They're extremely vulnerable. They're so vulnerable right now. They have +3 missile upgrades. Solar is going to be able to pick up a lot of those Liberators for free, but still, that Zerg army on the ground not really looking that impressive anymore. We see 24 Hydras on that production tab as well. Fantasy desperately trying to retreat, but that was an awful lot of those Liberators that were picked up for pretty much free. I mean, I guess a couple of Hydras and whatnot were picked off too, but I mean, that was a very nice engagement. And all of a sudden, right, that makes this... Oh, actually, he didn't have +3 missile yet, but all of a sudden, that makes this Zerg army a lot more scary. Liberators can be built rather quickly. He's making 5 of them at a time right now, but you don't want to lose them for free. That's the thing about these Terran mech units, you know? They're not cheap. And all of a sudden, while the supply, or rather the resources lost here was heavily in favor of the Terran player earlier, right now, Zerg is evening it up. We see the Brute Lords coming up. Brute Lords are a tricky unit to transition into. So here's the thing about Brute Lords, right? On paper, if you have enough Brute Lords in the sky, they can deal with all of these Terran units, with the exception, I guess, of the Vikings and the Liberators with ease. On paper, a Brute Lord Corruptor army is amazing. The thing is, it's a slow army. Right? And if there's one thing that Cyclones and Hellions have that's completely opposed to Brute Lords, is that they're extremely mobile. Also, on top of that, Cyclones can actually be surprisingly good when it comes to dealing with this. Now, once again, the Liberation Zones from a bit of a distance. We see the Brute Lords trying to engage, but I love this. Great zoning there by Fantasy. The Hydras can't really go underneath, which means that all of a sudden the Vikings have a much better time trying to engage here as well. Beautiful. Ooh, beautiful, what's it called? Parasitic bomb right there on that one Viking, but it was split off immediately. Still, though, the Brute Lords are going through this Liberation Zone, and all of a sudden, yes, Fantasy is forced to unsiege, and that means that Solar can start pushing forward. Actually, I don't really know if I like this retreat pattern too much by Fantasy. He's pushing himself into a corner over here, right? This is an area that can be surrounded quite smoothly. The Corruptors swooping in right now, trying to get the engagement right here on the Liberators, but the Brute Lords, where are they? They finally have just now arrived. Takes a little while for them to fly over towards this location. That's still so many Zerg units available, though, and I guess eventually these Terran units are going to be able to retreat, but the majority of them were picked off here as well. I think even though that fight didn't look that great there for Solar initially, all of a sudden right now, we find ourselves in a pretty good spot here for the South Korean Zerg player, who retook the base in the center. He retook the base right here on the right-hand side as well, and that one actually is still alive at this point. Not a lot of gas remains here for Solar, right? He's got a lot of minerals. I guess he could make some Zerglings, but they're a little bit awkward against this amount of Hellions as well. The thing is, the Zerg army in general, it's nice, right? It's really good to siege with. And that's kind of what Brute Lords shine at right now. Since there's not a lot of Liberator zones anymore, it's gonna make it difficult for Fantasy to engage. He finally right now spawns with a couple of these Liberators, but man, those Corruptors do not mess around. And even though they're slow, right, his army is slow, if they do get the fight, if they do get the engagement, all of a sudden this Zerg army is absolutely terrifying. Solar is smashing back the Terran army that was trapped in the bottom right-hand corner. He then smelled blood and he decided to move across the map and test the waters to see if he could go for a winning push. On the left-hand side of the map, we see a command center that's being picked off as well with a small hit squad of Hydralisk. And I think that Solar has managed to overcome this very, very strong Terran player. Now, one thing that Fantasy is very well known for is the Fantasy GG timing. This is something that people have joked about for a very long time. Fantasy oftentimes finds himself microing 1 medevac and 8 marines, even though he has no more mining bases against like 8 base Zerg, okay? This is one of the things that Fantasy loves to do. It's like, if I've got a chance, I'm gonna stay in the game. And well, some people think it's rude or something. Some people like to think it's a little BM. I think it's fair enough, but at this point, right? At this point, even though he can try and stay in this game, there is pretty much 0 chance that Solar is gonna give up a lead like this as he overruns the natural Fantasy. And with that, the Zerg player is the one who obtains the victory. I hope you enjoyed watching this game. If you did, make sure you hit that like button down below. And if you want to see more, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you get a notification as soon as I upload more. A special shout out, of course, to the Patreon supporters. Thank you guys very much for all of your generosity. I much appreciate it. But for now, I want to thank you for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile, alright? And I'll see you once again in the next one.